Ahora sí pasamos con el embajador Ronald Michael Sanders. Queremos destacar todo el trabajo que tiene el embajador en temas de pobreza, en temas de deuda pública, de cambio climático en el ámbito de la Organización de Estados Americanos. Sin más, darle la palabra. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, and thank you all who have participated so far in this meeting. It's been extremely interesting and instructive. Look, we all live in a very troubling world right now. Trade rules have been tossed out of the window. International law is being ignored. International humanitarian law is being treated as if it is a floor mat. The rights of people across the world are in danger. And inequity between states is widening, largely because of the bullying of powerful countries that are able to do so. It leaves countries like mine that are small in great danger. But I will confine my remarks today to the subject which you've asked me to speak on. Therefore, I will deal with a small Caribbean state that suffers from climate change and an inequitable international financial system. In our region, public debt is driven by climate shocks that we did not create. The major historical and current greenhouse gas emitters, also the key shareholders of the financial system, they cause the problem and they control the money, have not aligned that system with climate reality, leaving rebuilding finance scarce and costly. We are forced to borrow on oppressive terms, and I use the word oppressive advisedly. High interest, short-term maturities. When a Category 5 storm wipes out homes, roads, and power, governments must rebuild again and again. And I remind you that we are small islands. One hurricane in 5 minutes can destroy the entire economy and leave us with 12 years of GDP erased. And we have to restart all over again. In 2017, for instance, Category 5 Hurricane Irma destroyed 95% of Barbuda's buildings, forcing a 2-year evacuation of all inhabitants to Antigua and a recovery bill of approximately $200 million. Less than 2 weeks later, Maria hit Dominica with damage and losses reaching 226% of that country's GDP. In the smallest Eastern Caribbean economies, public debt last year was 71% of gross domestic product, above the 60% regional target. Insurance is also becoming unaffordable. The IMF reports higher insurance with raised costs, which worsens the entire underinsurance capacity. Some countries have been graduated from concessional finance because of their GNI per capita, a metric that hides inequality and vulnerability. Now, my country is one of them. But the truth of the matter is, GNI per capita is measured on the basis of the average of the entire population. If Bill Gates or Elon Musk were to move to Antigua tomorrow, we become the richest country in the world overnight, but we'd still have 99% of the people in poverty. So the UN General Assembly last year adopted a resolution, which my country helped to push, advancing a multi-dimensional vulnerability index, an MVI, to complement gross domestic product as a criteria for access to funding. But it is not yet implemented across the financial system, if it ever will be. In fact, right now, I despair that it will ever see the light of day. Coral bleaching is occurring simultaneously as I speak across the Atlantic, Indian and Pacific Oceans simultaneously. All 3 oceans right now are heating up. Since January 2023, over 84% of the world's reefs have faced bleaching and heat level stress. What does that mean? It means dying reefs, weaker coastal protection, and fewer snorkel and diving facilities for visitors in the Caribbean. Important to us because we live by tourism. Reefs underpin tourism. Coral reef tourism generates $36 billion a year globally. 9.5 billion goes to the Caribbean. When reefs bleach, our revenues fall. At the record 38 million metric tons of sargassum that turned up on our shores in 2025, clogging beaches and intakes and raising cleanup costs and hurting tourism even more. Caribbean sea level is rising at 3.4 millimeters a year, steadily pushing high tide lines into hotels, onto roads, into ports, and onto airport runways. One study projects 38 to 47% losses in tourism by 2100 from sea level rise if major adaptation is not undertaken. Low-lying seaports and airports across Latin America and the Caribbean are exposed. This is a present and imminent risk that demands well-financed, long-horizon planning. Without timely investment, closures from flooding and storm surges will trigger severe economic disruptions, worsening unemployment and poverty. Now, the impact of climate goes beyond physical disaster. Because of financial constraints, many Caribbean states struggle to retain our tertiary educated population. IMF research estimates that roughly 70%, I'll repeat that figure, 70% of our tertiary educated people have emigrated to the OECD countries. In other words, our taxpayers are paying for doctors, scientists, oncologists, you name them, in hospitals in Washington, in New York, in Miami, everywhere else but our own. What we seek is equity, not charity. 5 actions would help, and I list them if I may. Making operative the MVI across multilateral development banks so that highly vulnerable small states access affordable finance even when per capita income looks high. Loan repayments of 30 years, low fixed rates and a 5-year grace period for climate-resilient public investment, terms that match asset lifespans. Climate-resilient debt clauses in all sovereign loans and bonds, automatically pausing payments after a verified disaster. Investments in reefs, wastewater upgrades, and coastal defenses to keep beaches and reefs alive. Lower insurance premiums through collaboration among reinsurers, development banks, and the world's major greenhouse gas emitters. Now, every dollar diverted to high-cost debt service after a storm is a dollar not spent on housing, not spent on clinics, not spent on schools, and not spent on adaptation. When small and medium-sized businesses cannot insure or rebuild, unemployment rises and families fall into poverty. To stop poverty from expanding, we must reduce the cost of capital, pause debt after disasters, and fund resilience before the next storm hits. Climate impacts are accelerating faster than the fiscal capacity of small states to adapt, and I want you to please listen to this point. Average disaster losses run to near 2% of GDP every year. Adaptation needs are 3.4% of GDP. You see the differential immediately. Yet small island states receive only 2% of tracked adaptation finance, while the insurance costs are going up. This proves that impacts now outpace fiscal capacity, and today's financing norms amplify inequity. Now, human rights, climate change and debt are human rights issues. Financing terms must protect essential services and social spending floors, avoid measures that push people back into poverty, ensure non-discrimination and public participation, and provide remedies when harms occur. And this has been outlined and affirmed by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and the International Court of Justice. Law is on our side, as is human rights. Now, we're not asking for special favors. My country is the second fastest growing economy in the Caribbean. Not because the world's financial system was nice to us. It isn't. We don't have access to affordable financing. Not because climate change has stopped. It hasn't. It continues to batter us. We have developed despite that. Now, that tells you that we have the capacity to do it, but it would be very helpful if the world were to take account of the plight into which they have put us. Thank you.